Hey, good morning. It is the 24th of March, which is mind blowing, right? I cannot believe it is the 24th of March. It is the old saying, right? And we talked about this at my house this morning, actually. The old saying that the days are long, but the years are short. We are living that more than ever before in my mind. I don't recall a time where the time seems to be going so quickly as it is right now. And no, it's not because I'm 51, almost 52 years old. I don't need anybody casting stones here, right? But nonetheless, so listen, it's coffee talk with Kima time. It's Friday, it's 8:30. I raise my Kima cup to you. If you need a Kima cup, right? We mailed a couple out last week. If you need a Kima cup, hit me up. We'll send you a Kima cup, but you got to be sure to use it. Post it. A little hashtag Kima cup for me if you don't mind. Our Kima cups have been all over the world, and we may have something fun coming with Kima cups again here soon. Anyhow, good morning to you. I am so pumped up. So listen, it's peanut butter jelly time. You guys remember that little song, peanut butter jelly time? The little banana. I don't know. Nonetheless, what is peanut butter jelly time? For those of you new to the Kima Real Estate Group, peanut butter jelly time is when we take the entire month of April, from the 1st to the 30th, and we collect jars of peanut butter and jelly for the kids in need at the food pantry. You see, if there's lots of food we can donate, but kids would need can openers. They might need a pan. They might need a stove. They might not know how to cook. Peanut butter and jelly, they can open it up, and in the worst case situations, they can take two fingers and stay fed. Right. So peanut butter jelly time rather, is our dedicated month of April where we refill the food pantry with peanut butter and jelly for those kids in need. If they come home after school and they don't have anything, or on those long weekends where they're not eating school lunches, right? That peanut butter and that protein is really good for them. So anyhow, if you'll help us, if you're interested in donating peanut butter or jelly or both, anybody on my team can help you. We'll come to your house and pick it up if you'd like us to, or you're welcome to bring it right here to the office, and we'd love to see you. At which point you can pick up a Kima cup. Anyhow, listen, peanut butter jelly time, the whole month of April. Would love, love, love to see your faces. And every year you show up and show out, and we're so grateful for that. We're going to refill it again, guys. Anyhow, enough about that. So today was one of those days where I started looking at the chart of like what national day is today. I like to look at that, right? And today there's three things that today is. It's the National Day of Cheesesteaks. It's the National Cocktail Day, and it's National Chocolate Covered Raisin Day. I was like, wow, we're winning here today, right? Those three alone. But number one, I want to mention cheesesteaks, right? So I married a beautiful, talented, gorgeous, wonderful woman from Pennsylvania who went to school at St. Joe's in Philadelphia, right? The Philly cheesesteak. You've heard of that, right? Do you think I've ever been taken out one time in Philly for a true Philly cheesesteak? Not once. Not once. She married a gorgeous, good looking, talented, charismatic, humble guy from New England. She's eaten her fair share of lobsters, let me tell you, on the coast and off. But I haven't had a single cheesesteak in Philly. Not one. Not one. Anyhow, yeah, and I know she'll watch at some point today. So yes, this is me begging for a cheesesteak, right? But did you know what tomorrow is? This is even bigger. This is much bigger. Tomorrow's National Lobster Newburg Day. If you don't know what Lobster Newburg is, look it up. When I was a kid, my grandfather was a meticulous cook, right? Very meticulous. And I idolized my grandpa so much that when I was adopted to become a Kima, I chose his name as my middle name. That's how much I love my grandpa. And Grandpa, when he was around, would make us lobster Newburg once a year, and it's the absolute best. And my aunt Eileen makes it, my dad makes it, and it's wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but it's not Grandpa's lobster Newburg, right? So I may this weekend take a shot at making some lobster Newburg. We'll see. We'll see how things turn out. But do you happen to have one of those dishes in your family that only one person can make it and nobody can recreate it? If so, hit me up with that. Let me know what that one dish is, right? As you know, last week we did a short abbreviated version of Coffee Talk, and I did it from the shores of Lake Mattawa in Orange, Massachusetts. Shout out to Orange. And I was home for a sad reason, right? To see the funeral of my former baseball coach and father of one of my closest friends, Vic Colo. And Vic he didn't disappoint. The people that came told so many great stories. It was wonderful. But one final tribute to Vic Colo this morning and to his family. And I just appreciate you wrapping your arms around me and including me. It meant a lot, it meant an awful lot. But it was great to be home. Always good to be home. So quick story. Cole is 19 now, but back when he was, I don't know, call it 7. So what was that, 12 years ago? When he was 7, he was sitting on the couch over to my right, and we're watching TV up ahead of us. And I said something about, oh yeah, that was before the internet. And he stopped. It's like the whole world stopped in that moment. And his head snapped at me, and he looked at me and he said, "Before the internet?" He had no idea the internet had never existed. As a 7-year-old, it didn't like. I'll never forget the moment. Like, I was like, oh yeah, Cole. At one time, we didn't have, like, not that long ago, we didn't have the internet, right? And it just got me to thinking about what has changed so much, right? And since the dawn of the internet, and you could list a million things and certainly share those with me. One that came to mind was how we buy used things, right? Used to be, if you wanted to buy something used, you listen to that Saturday morning radio show, right? The yard swap show. You know, Joe in Wendell has, a 1963 blah, blah, blah for sale. He's asking $300, whatever, right? That was one way. The other way was to go to yard sales on weekends. And yeah, people still do yard sales, but there's a yard sale every single day online, right? Whether it be through Facebook Marketplace or eBay, whatever the different places are. And so it got me to thinking about Cole specifically because he does a lot of buying and reselling, and Camden's starting to get into buying and reselling. But how much has the internet changed that? Right? If you want to buy and resell it the Gary Vaynerchuk way, you go to yard sales, you negotiate, you come home and you sell it, right? And you still can do that. But you can do it every single day now. Thrift store, I mean, you name it, right? The thrifting is actually a verb. I think that's a verb. But thrifting is actually a verb now. So it got me to thinking about, like, what do you buy used versus new, and how do you do it? All those kinds of things. Anyhow, so speaking of before the internet, I was in Orange and I was at my dad's house. Now, my dad, if you gave him a big on button on a computer, he wouldn't know where to find it, right? Like he doesn't turn on computers. He doesn't own a cell phone. He has no idea what the cloud is. Doesn't care. I'm going to tell you how remote we really were. All right. When you go to my dad's house, if you want to make a long distance call, you've got to take a little card that he has because he won't pay for long distance. You have this little card that he has to dial in some special number to make outbound long distance calls. That is no joke, just absolutely no joke. The other part is, like, you can call him inbound, right? Like, he'll take those calls, but in order to reach him, and so he did end up with a cell phone, sorta, right? Prepaid 19. I think this might be like the early, maybe 1999 cell phones, right? But that's how remote we were. The idea of having Wi-Fi access or anything like that just doesn't exist back home. So it's funny how so much has changed. Trey, good morning to you, buddy. Hopefully you're back here and hopefully you enjoyed your trip. Yeah, well, I got a little something started again. Anyhow, so I want to talk about one of my biggest pet peeves. So I failed 7th grade English, and I about failed 8th grade English and 9th grade English. And Mrs. Kazmarzik and Mrs. Edmonds and Mrs. Smith or Miss Smith, they will all tell you that I barely hung in there, right? Yeah, I think I passed more with charm than I did with actual knowledge. But in there, one of the things I did learn was this word called contractions, right? And I didn't know it was a conjunction or contraction. I just remember the song "Conjunction Function." Conjunction junction. What's your function? Whatever. You know the song from the 70s and 80s, right? Saturday morning cartoons. But contractions. There's one contraction that really bright people use every single day online, and they don't do it correctly, and it drives me batty, and I bet it drives some of you nuts too. It's the should have versus should of. When we contract should have, I should have done that. I should have mowed the grass. I should have stopped last night and filled up my car because I'm on empty this morning. I should have. When I contract that, it becomes should have. Not should of, but should have, right? Apostrophe VE, right? So when people actually spell that out, we've gotten so bad here in the States that we actually spell out should, OV, should of, instead of should have. Drives me nuts. I know it shouldn't drive me crazy, and I know that those are the things that people tell me to lay off, but honestly, I just can't stand that one. It's like the there thing, right? Same idea, but the should have one really drives me nuts. It's not should have. I should have done that. It just doesn't make sense. Like, stop and think about it for a second. It just doesn't make sense. So anyhow, there's my pet peeve for the day. Are you on Instagram? Like, do you follow Instagram like every day? If you do and you watch any Instagram videos, you have had to have seen, unless maybe you have, because I guess the Instagram has some sort of a way to track, right, the algorithm to show you things that you're going to like. I get a lot of dog videos, as you can imagine, right? Lots and lots of dog videos. Well, there's a video going around right now, and it's a million different versions of the same video, but you'll know what it is if you've seen it, and that is the cheese tax. If you have not seen the cheese tax dog video and the little song that goes with it, and if it isn't true, so help me goodness, I'll become a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. The cheese tax is one of the truest, it's as true as gravity as far as I'm concerned, right? Think about the cheese tax for a second. What is the cheese tax? First of all, for those of you that haven't seen it, if you go into your refrigerator and you go in stealth mode and you barely open it up, and you open up the drawer that has the lunch meat and the cheeses in it, things of that nature, and you go to grab the cheese and you barely open up that cheese, right? Just barely. It doesn't make any sound if you do it very quietly. Your dog could be on the 3rd floor and you could be in the basement. It wouldn't matter. That dog will hear that bag of cheese get open and will sit there staring longingly at you for you to pay the cheese tax. And if you haven't seen it, go look it up. You'll be glad you did. Do not hate me for the fact that that song will be stuck in your head the rest of the day, because it certainly will. But the cheese tax is a real thing. So Camden loves that. Camden's my 15-year-old son. He loves to ask us questions. Most of the questions are all around sports. Dad, who's the best linebacker to play in the 80s? Dad, what's the best young talent you would pick if you were to start a team in Major League Baseball, et cetera, et cetera. It is endlessly, constantly asking me these questions, right? Last night he asked the question of both Jennifer and I, and the question was, what was the very best thing to come out of the 80s and the 90s? He asked the 70s, obviously, there's one answer for that. But anyhow, so he asked us, what was the best thing to come out of the 80s and 90s? And so I got to thinking about that, and I couldn't come up with a single answer. He's like, please tell me all you boomers aren't going to say Michael Jackson. I was like, oh, no. Yes, very famous, but was he the best thing to come out of the 80s? No. But so Jen said the music in the 80s. Okay, well, great. But because that didn't pass Cam's test, he wants to know what's the best song or best album. He wants to be very specific. So I ask you this week, and I'll share the results next week. What are the very best things in your mind that came out of the 80s and the 90s? It could be a person, it could be the internet, it could be Wi-Fi. I mean, whatever you think it is, what is the very best thing that came out of the 80s and the 90s? We'll post that question a few times this week and share these results with you next week. But I couldn't come up with an answer. The 70s was easy. The 80s and 90s, though, I'm not sure how to answer that. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. So do you know? You probably heard the term messy middle. Have you ever heard the term missing middle? Have you ever heard that term? It is a term. It's a catchphrase now in Raleigh for the city's new way to look at their new approach, rather, at housing and development. Right. Back in 2021, they passed some legislature that allows us to develop differently than we did before and more densely inside Raleigh, right? Increasing the tax base, giving people the opportunity to maximize the land that they own, things of that nature. And anytime you make a change, there will be loopholes and people will find them, right? As an example, one of the biggest changes that came out of that is it allowed people inside the Raleigh city limits to go ahead and add an ADU, right? What is an ADU? It's an accessory dwelling unit. Boring, right? It's a granny flat. It's a home office. It's an Airbnb. That's really what it is. But it's allowed people to maximize their property in ways that they couldn't before. And lots of people are doing that. They're creating she sheds, right, for lack of a better term. But it allows you a percentage of your lot based on your lot and your house size. You can build a certain size accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, right? Matter of fact, I've got one on 600 Bragg right now that we're building new construction, custom home. We've got a nice home. Behind it, we've got a garage. Above the garage, we've got an ADU. That would not have been allowed previously, but we now have an ADU there. We did one on Camden Street in downtown Raleigh where we had a separate little cute. It just looks like just a tiny house, right? We had a 525 square foot home. It had a kitchen, living room combo, separate bedroom, stackable washer dryer, full bathroom, right? Had a little front porch, that kind of thing. But that's what an ADU is. Now, some people can use those and rent those out for short-term rentals, long-term rentals. Some people can use it as a home office, right? If you're, let's say you're a real estate agent and you want a home office, you can make that your home office. You're an accountant, an attorney, any of those kinds of things, right? So it allows you a ton of flexibility, no doubt about it. Grandma, right? That's why we call it a granny flat. That being said, right now, the challenge we're finding, an example came up recently in the Hayes-Barton neighborhood in downtown Raleigh. In Hayes-Barton, there is a group of people that are suing the city of Raleigh because there was a historic home, not protected on the register, or any of those kinds, just old, right? An older home historically. And the people who bought the lot tore the lot down, or tore the home down. And because of the new regulations and the new approach towards zoning and what have you, it did not require a rezoning, nor did it require a public hearing to build 17 townhomes that are going to sell at $2 million a piece. The people in Hayes-Barton are angry about this, right? And so there's a big lawsuit going on. And so when you hear things like this happening, right, keep your eyes and ears open, because anytime there's a change in your local municipal zoning laws, there's also opportunity, right? And if you're an opportunist, somebody saw an opportunity here, and now they're going to develop a piece of property, and they're going to make an awful lot of money. Now, I'm not taking a side here. I'm just telling you that if that's your strategy, certainly there's opportunity there. Do I feel for those people? Sure. Yep, I do, right? When Mary Ann Baldwin took over as mayor of Raleigh in 2019, she dedicated herself to giving homeowners and landowners in Raleigh more flexibility. Well, she certainly has done that, no doubt about it. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. Anyhow, in regards to the market itself, I had some really interesting statistics to share with you. So let me grab these. So in June of 2022, we were under 5,000 homes available for sale on the market. That was in June of 2022, so less than a year ago. That was the last time that we were under 5,000 available homes until 2 weeks ago, right? We're entering our third straight week of being sub 5,000 homes for sale. June of last year was the tail end of the craziness when nobody could find anything to buy. We had 1.1 months of inventory. Guys, we're at 1.39 months of inventory right now, right? So we're not far off in terms of what's being chewed up in terms of sales versus what's available. My point here is we are in a significant inventory crunch. Yes, the interest rates are still remaining high. No question about it. That has slowed things down. If those interest rates trickle even a little bit, guys, the world is going to explode in the world of real estate. Be prepared for that. So let's talk more. So we are at 4,806 homes for sale right now. We had 4,500 homes for sale in June of 2022, right? Very, very similar. Right now, we have 6,276 homes under contract, in June of 22. We've got 4,300 homes under contract right now, right? So the market is moving. It's moving rapidly. We're no longer in those crazy days, but do you see how close the numbers are to the crazy days, even though interest rates are at 7%? Do you see that? The demand for homes in Raleigh has not slowed down. What has changed is the way we go about the process, because people have less money to use towards buying homes right now. We do not have the institutional investors in our market right now. We are still selling to investors, but they're one-off investors. The institutional money is gone. That has allowed due diligence deposits to come down. It's allowed earnest money deposits to come down. It's allowed some negotiation. I keep hearing from people, I'm waiting for the market to crash here in Raleigh. If you wait for the market to crash, I may not be in real estate any longer at that point in time, guys. It is, in my opinion, based on the tea leaves, not going to crash. We have had a reduction in list prices, but we have not had a reduction in sales prices. Hear that clearly. If you're in the market or thinking about being in the market and you want to sit down and have this kind of conversation, my team, our team, is ready to help you have that conversation. So there's a lot of numbers we can share with you. I just want to give you a little taste of it today. Yes, the interest rate's higher. Yes, you're going to afford less home. Yes, the institutional investors coming back when the rates drop. And yes, we anticipate rates to be back down into the fives by this time next year. So hopefully this helps you. Peanut butter jelly, don't forget the entire month of April. Bring us your peanut butter and jelly. If we bring it early, we're okay with that. I love you guys. If nobody has told you this yet today, if you're by yourself or you feel lonely in life, wherever you are, you really do matter. You matter to somebody. If you don't matter to somebody, you matter to me. The fact that you're on here today means a lot to me. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in a week.